allies. Friends and I allies.
What's going on, YouTube? I was not planning on making this video until like 10 minutes ago, but I just felt like this is just, I don't know, a kind of different topic to talk about. Like, I feel like not too many people are really talking right now when it comes to like gaming stuff. It's just, I don't know, pickups and your favorite shit, your top 10, your whatever. I've kind of made like a kind of like, I don't know, a discussion, not really a discussion, but more of like a video kind of defending the console. You know, I did a video where it was like PS1 versus the N64, and pretty much gave facts as to why PS1 is better than Nintendo 64. And sorry, the thing is, I recently heard. And it's not just this recent comment that I heard, but I've noticed it too, just among collectors now and shit. Somebody said, I don't know who it is, I don't know who said this, nobody told me this, I heard it myself, I'm not gonna say no names, I don't know. Somebody said that the Sega Genesis has no good games. Now, I understand people got their own opinions and stuff, right? And everything like that, but honestly, man, to say that the Genesis has no good games is fucking absurd. I'm going to explain to you. As a matter of fact, I'm going to explain to you this old-ass console. This version I have here doesn't even work, dude. This shit's just old. That's why it's all dusty. If I toss this in the trash, because I have another version, the Model 2 that works. But this console, yeah, it may not be popular among quote-unquote collectors on YouTube. Doesn't mean it's not a bad console. I'm going to give you my thoughts and my opinions on this whole subject matter, alright? Look. I've noticed that when people are collecting games on YouTube or whatever, I feel like people only collect, not only, but the majority of the time, it's only Nintendo. Nintendo this, Super Nintendo that, N64 this, trying to get a complete box collection of N64, trying to get a complete box collection of NES. I feel like this whole collecting shit, it lacks variety among YouTube, I'm sorry. Like, I barely see people picking up PS1, Turbo Graphics, I don't know, what else? Yeah, you know, I don't see really anybody really hardcore collecting Genesis, or Game Gear for that matter. Like, it's always Game Boy, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64. And don't get me wrong, Nintendo's great, that's fine. But, I mean, don't you guys get kind of bored watching these fucking pickup videos or whatever when it's always about the same fucking games? The same games! People are after the same games. Doesn't matter if the games are straight ass. I feel everything now is just about rarity. That's it. It's just about rarity. You know, I love watching, the thing is, I like watching YouTubers that are kind of older than me because they've been around longer, so they kind of have more knowledge of older shit, and they know pretty much more games. I love watching videos and just seeing, like, games that I had never even heard of or discovered. You know what I mean? I had no idea about certain games, dude. That's what I love watching, but when you see the same people picking up, guess what I picked up today? Clay Fighter Sculptor's Cut. Great. Okay. I don't fucking care. There's a regular version that's pretty much the exact same thing as Sculptor's Cut. It's the same game, dude. You know what I mean? And they revere this because it's like rare. You know what I mean? Like, going back with the whole Genesis shit, man. I feel people don't give credit where credit is due. A lot of these young dudes that have started to collect, I feel like they think like Nintendo is the all and be all of consoles. Like, that's like the only company to collect for. Now, I understand if like you just want to collect for Nintendo as your first console, but it's just it's ludicrous to say that because Nintendo's hyped or whatever, you're gonna say Genesis has no good games. No, motherfucker, you saying that because you haven't sat down and really researched these consoles. You really haven't sat down and played this shit. You've only stuck to what everybody else has told you, or whatever everybody else is hyped up about, what everybody else is seeking after. You haven't. You probably didn't even grow up in the fucking era of 16-bit, dude. You probably grew up with fucking shitty N64 and GameCube and the original Xbox. Like, fucking... That's the thing that I hate. Like, these prices in Nintendo games have risen so high, and it's all because of hype. It's not really because it's really worth that much. Like, people throw that term rare loosely. Earthbound is rare. No, it's not. There's like 50 auctions of that shit on eBay every day. I always hear like Flintstones and Dinosaur Peak is like the second rarest Nintendo game, but it's always on eBay. Like, all the time. I don't understand. Like, I feel people are losing the reason as to why they buy games. Me, I buy it because of nostalgia and to play the fucking things. You know what I'm saying? There's games I want to play, whether they're not rare or whatever. I don't give a fuck, dog. Like, everybody loves to have a rare piece in the collection. That's fine. But, like, when everything's just about rarity and you just stick to one thing, I feel there's no variety in anything. It's just sticking to one thing. The videos are about the same fucking games. People are after the same fucking games. It's like, where's the personality in your collection? You know what I mean? Me, personally, I don't have that many RPGs. Why? Because I don't like RPGs. So you can kind of see my personality within my collection. What do I like? I like RPGs. I love fighting games. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's unique to your own style and your personality. You know what I mean? I mean, it's cool if you collect complete libraries. I have a complete Dreamcast library because I think Dreamcast is fucking sick. To me, Dreamcast was the last arcade-like system. But let me go back to Genesis. To say Genesis has no good games is absurd. Whoever said that, it's obviously clear he probably didn't grow up around the Genesis times. I'm gonna tell you this. I grew up through all that. 16-bit, that was my time. Genesis, for a while, was actually beating the Super Nintendo. Literally. If you're gonna say the Genesis has no good games, but you're gonna say the Super Nintendo is one of the best systems, that is the most stupidest way of thinking ever. How are you gonna say that one of the best consoles was losing to a console that has no good games? It's absurd. Makes no fucking sense. At the time, Super Nintendo was more family. You know what I mean? Genesis was more edgy. That was more for like the older teenagers. Super Nintendo, yeah, it had games, you know, but it was more for like everybody, like more like kids. Mortal Kombat didn't have blood in the Super Nintendo version. Genesis did. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel Sega just in general is underappreciated, man. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, half the games that are on the Super Nintendo are on the Genesis. They had Earthworm Jim on the same console. You know what I mean? And sometimes, like, they even had, like, games, whereas sometimes the Super Nintendo version would be better, sometimes the Genesis version would be better. But to say it has no good games, and when you tell people, like, what do you mean? You know, how can you say that? They'll be like, well, the Sonics are good. It's like this, it's like people only know about, like, 5 games, like the most popular 5 games. Yeah, the Sonics. Okay, the Sonics. Well, have you heard of Mystic Defender? Have you heard of Decap Attack? Nah, what's that? You dumb motherfucker. You call yourself a video game collector? You call yourself a retro what the fuck? You don't never heard of this? Don't you remember these games? I didn't even have a Genesis back then. Genesis isn't even in my top 3. But to say that it's not a good system is absurd. It's ridiculous. I remember I used to go to video rental places. I had a Super Nintendo growing up, but I remember I used to see these Genesis boxes, like the black grid boxes. Decap Attack, Green Dog, Tasmania, Kid Chameleon, Toe Jam and Earl, and I'd be like, man, these games look fucking sick. These games look dope, and they are. They're good. I didn't have a Genesis. Finally, when I got a Genesis years later, I finally acquired all the games that I remember seeing at rental stores, at Toys R Us's, at video game places. Like, you know, I'm gonna show you some games, man. And if you say that these games are just nothing, like, you can't debate this, man. Like, the older black grid boxes, like I mentioned, Kid Chameleon. What's wrong with Kid Chameleon? Look at this. You have so many different costumes, over 100 levels. Like, you know, Genesis had, like, Mystic Defender. This is such a sick ass side scroller. The Golden Axe series, Golden Axe 2, Strider. This is like an arcade port. Like, this shit was in the arcades. Strider. Growl's a beat 'em up. Shit, it even had Street Fighter 2. This came out when Super Nintendo only had Street Fighter 2. And then it came out with Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition, where you could finally pick the same character twice. You know? It was like the answer to, like, Super Nintendo, Street Fighter 2 and 2 Turbo. Oh, what else we got here? I mean, dog. We got the Streets of Rage series, the answer to Final Fight. These are probably just as good, if not better, than Final Fight. This is like my favorite Genesis game. How are you gonna say beat 'em ups? This shit's whack? What? Like, oh, what else we got? We got Gunstar Heroes. What's wrong with this? This is like Contra. Who doesn't like Contra, dude? Like, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Hyperstone Heist. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4, the Turtles in Time, honestly, is probably regarded as one of the best beat-em-ups ever. And Genesis had its own version of it. This is practically the same thing. Aladdin. Now, the reason why I bring this one up is because Super Nintendo had a Capcom version. Genesis had a Virgin Games version. This version is a fuck times better than the Super Nintendo. And this game was very popular. There's even... Look it up. You don't remember? Look up the commercial for this. What else we got up in this? We got shit like Ranger X, Earthworm Jim, that was on both consoles. Shinobi 3, one of the, in my opinion, one of the best side scrollers ever. This game is dope. You know, and then I'm gonna show you this, like a shoot 'em up, such as like Thunder Force 2. This is where I kind of want to explain to you how games were back in the day, which a lot of young motherfuckers don't understand. Back in like 8-bit, 16-bit, when games would come out, the way to see if a game was good was to always compare it to the arcade port. You'd always be like, oh, how close is it to the arcade port? Because back in the day, arcades were better than home consoles. So you would always want a game that was closest to the arcade port, because that would give you the arcade experience. So 16-bit days, it was like, oh, how close was it to the arcade port? Genesis, in my opinion, was like an arcade console. Had tons of arcade-like games. That's what you wanted. Tons of shmups, such as Thunder Force 2. Beat-em-ups, such as like Streets of Rage. People these days don't understand that. Games back in the day, arcade games, were shmups. Beat-em-ups. You wouldn't see a Mario at an arcade. You don't play like a platform game at an arcade. No, it was short games, shmups, a racing game, beat-em-ups, or a short side scroller. That's it. Like, you don't play these long ass games. People don't understand that shit. Yeah, I don't. And Genesis had a lot of arcade games. That's what you wanted. It was more edgier. Like, it was just. It's like, why do I have to explain this to people? You guys should know this. Like, I know tons of people know this. Like I said, Genesis isn't in my top. It's debatable. It's kind of there, maybe in my top 5, but my top 3, like, it's absurd to say that Genesis has no good games. What have you played? You're going to say Genesis has no good games, but then you're going to go back and say N64 has tons of good games? You're fucking kidding me, right? Genesis has, like, God knows how many games. Maybe 900 games? I don't know. Then N64 has, like, what? Under 300? What is this? Where is this skewed thinking coming to? Like, how do you guys process things in your brain? Granted, N64 has gems, dude. Super Smash Brothers is fucking awesome. Star Fox 64 is awesome. But to say that like Genesis has no good games, but N64 is better, you're fucking absurd. You're stupid. Genesis is great. Sega is great. Sega was ahead of its time, dog. Like I said, they were more arcade-like. Look at the Dreamcast type of games they got, man. They were all arcade-like games. What do you mean by arcade-like games? They were like arcade-like games. They were short. You know, they're the type of games that like you be in a section of a game and then they'll point you to keep going. Go, go. It was all arcade, tons of points popping up. You know, beating up people really quick. Like that's what it was like, man. Like, and I miss that arcade feel. You know, but apparently game collectors today think that Genesis have no good games. That Sega's some shit. The only console I really see people really collecting for when it comes to Sega is the fucking Saturn. Because their games are rare. It's like, come on, man. Like, why are people collecting? Or why are people even buying these games? Are you playing it to really play them? If it was really all about playing them, then just emulate them. You know what I mean? Like, the fuck? If you're... This is my fucking opinion. This is gonna be some bold-ass, strong words. But if you're strictly collecting for rarity, get the fuck out of the game. Stop lying to yourself, man. I always thought people collected because they wanted to play these fucking games. And now I feel nobody's fucking collecting to play them. Now it's more of a show. Look what I copped, guys. I copped Little Samson. I copped stadium events. I'm tired of seeing these fucking videos of these good for you. You found a rare game that fucking sucks. Stadium events, I don't fucking care. You know, like, wow, if I were to find it, awesome. Yeah, congratulations. Like, I'm happy for you. But fuck, you type in stadium events, there's like a shit ton of videos on YouTube about that shit. But I rarely see any videos talking about Gunstar Heroes, Shinobi 3, Growl, Mystic Defender, fucking Quackshot, Ghouls and Ghosts, Shatter Dancer, like, fucking Toki going ape spit, like, dog, like, what? These games are good, man. That's what I want to see. I feel like the YouTube gaming community lacks variety, and that's why I didn't like, cause about the sneaker community. I was really part of the sneaker community in YouTube. But in order to be called a sneaker, like, in order for you to qualify as a sneakerhead, you just had to collect Nike and Jordans. Like, really, dude? Like, that's it? You know there's other name brands out there, right? Just the 6 shoes. Reebok, Adidas, Puma, like... And no, it's just Jordans and Nikes. It's just like the game community. No, it's just Super Nintendo and N64. An occasional Saturn. That's why I like watching older heads, because it seems like people older than me, like... They'll go for a full run of Sega CD. Who the fuck goes for a full run of Sega CD? I think that's fucking cool because that's such an obscure system. Like, you won't see a younger dude do that. Why? Because they don't fucking care about the Sega CD. They think Sega's some shit. They probably don't even know what the fuck Sega is. For all they know, they think Sega just fucking makes video games and they never produce consoles. That's my opinion. I think that shit's whack. People need to get their head out their ass and start fucking looking up games, man. Discover new shit. That's what this whole community's about, right? Watching videos. What's the point of watching videos? To me, I would watch them because I like to see what people pick up and try to discover new games for my collection. Put a little, you know, more personality to my collection, man. Like, that shit's awesome. Like, that's what I like. The other day, I was watching. I didn't know there was a rating for fucking Genesis. You know, I didn't know that. Now I'm gonna go buy Raiden for Genesis. I didn't know that. You know, I love watching that shit. I didn't know there's so many shmups on the Genesis. Final Zone looked tight. I've heard of it, but I never, you know, I want to see somebody's perspective on it. I like people talking about these games that nobody ever... It's the same fucking games, man. And then they go ahead and talk bad about a console that's not bad. Like, what are you smoking, dude? Like... It's fine if you don't really like the Genesis or it doesn't appeal to you, but to say it doesn't have good games, it's ridiculous. But that's how it is now, right? These dudes that just come out of nowhere and just start collecting for my opinion, the wrong reasons, but whatever, dude. It's whatever. Anyways, guys, that was it. That was my little video. I don't know if it was a rant or whatever, but I'm just trying to defend Sega and just giving credit where credit is due. So, that's it, guys. Peace.